Что толку-то? Никакого толку. Да, понимаю. Ладно. Ладно. Sorry. Hey, Florida. Hey, man. Hey, hey. Nice to meet you. Шутки. Шутки плохо. Он считается. Вот нет, да. Все, nice to meet you. Very good. Someone is reading. No, very good. Нет, ну нет. Да, это игрушка просто. Хорошо. Нет, чат. Наоборот, просто да, это есть. приятно, можно сказать. Какофон.
Проснись, закажи, получи.
Яндекс, самая большая компания на рынке СНГ, придумала, как умножить капитал жителей.
How's it going, everyone? I'm Adam Molina. So it's 2018, let's be honest. Most smartphones are nearly perfect when it comes to audio. But nearly perfect isn't perfect. And if you take audio seriously, it's good to know which phone is going to do what you want. So in this video, we're going to go over the 5 best smartphones you can get if audio is important to you. And if you're curious as to how we got these results, stick around to the end of the video because I'll be quickly explaining all of it. Alright, let's get into it. So the 5 phones are the LG V30, the Galaxy S9 Plus, the Google Pixel 2 XL, the Nokia 8, yeah, I know I do 4 weird, and the Razr phone. Let's start there. So if you're all in on this wireless future, the phone you're going to want is the Razr phone. It was recently updated to Android 8.1, which means that it now comes with all of the Bluetooth codec goodies that come baked into Oreo. You'll get aptX, aptX HD, and LDAC for Bluetooth streaming, along with dual front-facing speakers. Now the glaring downside is that this phone is lacking a headphone jack, and even though it was to stuff in a 4,000 mAh battery, this phone is recently updated to Android 8.1, which means that it now comes with all of the Bluetooth codec goodies that come baked into Oreo. You'll get aptX, aptX HD, and LDAC for Bluetooth streaming, along with dual front-facing speakers. Now the glaring downside is that this phone is lacking a headphone jack, and even though it was to stuff in a 4,000 mAh battery, it's still a pretty big inconvenience. But to try and make up for that, the dongle that comes with the Razr phone does give it Dolby Atmos support. So if you don't go the wireless route and end up plugging in a pair of headphones, at least you get something for your troubles. So if you already have a high-end pair of wired headphones or are thinking of getting one in the near future, there's really only one option for you, the LG V30. Audiophiles love the LG V30 for a reason, and that reason is the headphone jack. Not only is that in itself an a plus these days, but this phone also has a quad DAC inside that supports 32-bit audio and an amp that can power a pretty high-end pair of headphones. It also outputs a signal that's stronger than any other phone on the market, and it has support for aptX HD, which is the next best codec for Bluetooth streaming after Sony's LDAC. Not to mention that if you do plug in a pair of headphones, the harmonic distortion was the lowest we tested in any smartphone, at 0.0009%. Now because both the phone and the headphones need to have LDAC for the codec to work, the lack of LDAC compatibility shouldn't really be a problem for you, unless you already own a pair of expensive Bluetooth Sony headphones like the WH-1000X Mark IIs. During testing, some of the only issues we found with this phone are well beyond human hearing, which is why they make music sound so damn good. One con to be aware of though is that the speakers on this thing are pretty weak. In our testing, the output maxes out at 71 decibels, making this the weakest speakers on any of the phones that we tested. And then we have the Galaxy S9 Plus, Samsung's latest and greatest. Now, it wasn't the best in any one category, but it scored well enough to compete, and let's be real, it has a headphone jack. It too supports 32-bit audio and is Dolby Atmos certified when you plug in a pair of headphones. The Razer phone does this too, to be fair, but the S9 does it without a stupid dongle. It takes the prize home for best processing just because of that. Again, the speakers here aren't the best, and the Dolby Atmos that you get on them won't be as impressive as they are with headphones. But it's still something that the other phones don't have. You also have the option to customize the frequency response on a system level, which is useful for cutting out frequencies that you physically can't hear anyway. And then of course we have Google's flagship, the Pixel 2 XL, which made this list even without a headphone jack. As Gary would say, let me explain. The Google Pixel 2 XL is on this list not because of its front-facing speakers, which were the second loudest out of any that we tested at 74.4 decibels, or even because the dongle surprisingly has a noise floor that was basically identical to the headphone jack of the LG V30 at negative 101.4 decibels versus negative 101.6 decibels. No, it's here for the same reason that it's one of the best phones to get, period. It's first in line for updates coming straight from Google. And while that may not seem like a huge deal right now, Pixel owners will be the first to get any updates or software tweaks that will make the audio experience even better. It's also compatible with all of the Bluetooth codecs except for Samsung HD, which is exclusive to the Galaxy. The only thing that would make this phone objectively better is if it actually had a decent headphone jack, which I'm never gonna let go, so just deal with it. So if you don't feel like spending nearly $1,000 on a smartphone, I can't really blame you. So we also have a bang for your buck pick, which goes to the Nokia 8, because despite its low price tag, it surprised us with how well it held up in our testing. Not only does it have some impressive speakers that gets up to 74 decibels in volume, but it also has a headphone jack with a noise floor that was on par with the likes of the Google Pixel 2 dongle and even the headphone jack of the LG V30. Throw in the fact that it now has Android Oreo, which gives it aptX, aptX HD, AAC, and LDAC compatibility, and it's well worth the asking price, especially when that price is usually around $400 US. So how did we get these results? Well, lucky for us, we have the latest and greatest technology at our disposal. A Scarlett 2i2 interface. Okay, not that impressive, but you'd be surprised the information you can get out of this thing with the right software. Using a 3.5mm to a 1/4-inch TRS connector Y cable, we were able to connect each phone to a top-secret piece of software called Audio Rightmark. It's actually a free piece of software that you can download yourself. If you're thinking this is overly simple, you're right. It is. There's a lot you can learn by simply playing a 96 kHz 24-bit test file, and then recording and comparing the results. We could have tested with higher bitrate files, but to be honest, there's really no point. We chose something that would meet or exceed CD quality, which is 44.1 kHz and 16-bit, because at the moment, no streaming service even does 32-bit audio. And that's how most people are going to be listening to music anyway. Now, as far as testing speakers go, unfortunately we don't have access to an anechoic chamber, but if you can get me in one, let me know so I can scratch that off my bucket list. So we were only really able to provide a gross sound pressure level measurement, or SPL, by playing a pink noise file on max volume off of each phone at a distance of 1 meter from one of these guys, a decibel reader. Overall, the front-facing speakers on these phones were better than the bottom-firing ones, but either way, all speakers across the board pretty much sucked. If you want good audio out of these phones, grab a pair of headphones. So when we start talking about wired performance, this is a little bit easier to understand, but harder to hear. Data aside, all of these phones sound pretty damn good. More than enough for the average person, and unless you spent years training your ears to pick up the smallest differences in air pressure, you won't be able to really say that one is loads better than the other. Now with that out of the way, that's why we have data. In wired headphones, lower distortion and a lower noise floor are better for the final product that reaches your ears. In that same vein, the lower the deviation found in testing the frequency response, the less your audio will be altered before you get a chance to hear it. And at the end of all of this testing, you get this chart comparing the phones. So one thing that's worth mentioning is that phones with dongles like the Google Pixel 2 XL and even the iPhone X refuse to output sound at a specified sample rate. Why? No idea, but with 3 different people doing these tests individually, we got more or less the same results. The good news is that these phones should have an easier time getting rid of distortion. The trade-off is that it technically isn't performing as well. While the average person streaming music or YouTube videos won't be able to tell, ultra hardcore wired listening only audiophiles might not be satisfied with this, which is fine because chances are that type of person should avoid dongles if they're using power-hungry headphones anyway. Now the last piece of testing was the Bluetooth codecs, which was actually super easy as the companies explicitly state which codecs they're using, which gave us this chart comparing them so you can see which phones have what you're looking for. So there you have it. If you care about audio, those are the top 5 smartphones you can get that won't let you down. I'm Adam Molina, thanks for watching, and make sure to follow us on social media if you're not already. We have Instagram and Twitter, and also hit the notification bell down there, so you'll be the first to know every time we upload a new video, because we are your source for all things Android.
Окей, о, это да. Да. Да.
Hey everybody, it's Nick. In this video I'm excited to share with you what I think are the best mobile production apps for iOS and Android. I've broken these down into 3 categories. DAWs, so fully fledged digital audio workstations, instruments and effects, and the third category, utilities. These are not necessarily instruments you can play or effects you can sound design your audio, but more tools that will definitely help you in your production. For the digital audio workstations, the first one I want to highlight is Beatmaker 3. I love the workflow of this. This features an MPC style workflow. However, it also has a classic timeline-based editor, as well as a scene mode for live remixing and performing. It also works with Ableton Link, so you can lock tempos with Ableton. That's pretty awesome. I really can't stress how much I like the pad-based workflow, and I'm excited to kind of try more finger drumming on it with this Atom controller. Next is Cubasis 3, and this is from the developers that brought us Cubase. This is going to be a really great mobile DAW for recording. It has a really comprehensive mixing console, as well as some great native plugins, including a multi-band compressor and a loudness maximizer. Next is Garageband. I couldn't forget this one. This is only for iOS, unfortunately, but it is free, so if you do have an iPad, I would definitely recommend checking it out. There's some nice realistic instruments included right away, and there's some fun drumming and performative aspects to it that make it a unique DAW. Lastly, we have FL Mobile, which is also one of my favorites on this list. If you're a FL user already, this will definitely be a great choice. I feel like the piano roll and automation in FL Mobile is really intuitive, as well as the effects processing, how it's handled on the right-hand side is really nice. Here's an idea I came up with working between my phone and my iPad. FL allows you to send projects back and forth really easily. And keep in mind that the Splice app, spoiler alert, it is on this list, allows you to download sounds now locally to your device. So you can use your Splice sounds in all of these digital audio workstations, really I think making them a lot more powerful when you can use the Splice library to power these DAWs. Cool, moving on to instruments and effects. I really want to highlight that you can perform with these live, so you can use your iPad or your mobile device as an instrument live, or you can actually use it as like an instrument when recording into your DAW.
Есть как бы такой путь, да, ты сейчас берешь как бы кучу бабок и вкладываешь во что-то абстрактное, да? Да. И надолго, да. Да, понимаю, это у тебя просто... Вложение это как бы, ну, с одной стороны мужская тема, но ты если не туда вложился, тоже как бы, да, понимаешь. Да. Ну, придется уже исправлять тогда. Понимаешь, да. 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 Ничего поделаешь, как говорится. Ты тоже... Ладно, забудь. Да.
If you're an iPad user, I would definitely recommend investing in two things: a Lightning to USB adapter so you can hook up your MIDI controllers to your iPad, and second, an 1/8 inch to stereo 1/4 inch cable so you could record into your audio interface. So the first two instruments I want to highlight are the Animoog and the Model D from Moog Music. And this is their first professional polyphonic synthesizer designed exclusively for the iPad. And the engine allows you to dynamically move through this XY space of unique timbres, and it really unlocks a lot of sound design capabilities very quickly. Model D is an emulation of the historic Mini Moog Model D synthesizer introduced in the 1970s. It has some beautiful presets and sounds very warm and really true to the analog spirit. Next we have Synthmaster 1, which is one of my favorites for sound design. It contains 650 presets, and it is modeled after the desktop version, Synthmaster 1. It also has Ableton Link and Interact Audio and Audiobus. So the next app is actually a bundle of apps from FabFilter. This is a bundle of their mixing and mastering apps, and you can use these in the digital audio workstations we talked about. This really, in my opinion, levels up the polish you can apply to a mobile produced track. I even think 5 years ago, you could scoff at the idea of starting and finishing a track on a mobile device. However, these apps are getting way more capable every year. Cool, so the last category of apps that I think you should know about are what I consider utility apps. So the first one is Splice. With the Splice mobile app, you can browse, search, and filter through our library, download sounds locally to your device now, and use them on any of these mobile apps. It's also a good workflow to use it at your home studio, using it to browse sounds. And I know we're hardly traveling, if at all, these days, but it is nice when you're on the go or if you want to go into a different room, like the living room. The next app I want to call out is Suggester. It is a tool that assists in the creation of songs and chord progressions. It'll help you find chords, and especially if you don't know much about music theory, it can help you tremendously. You can also export the MIDI from the app. I love exporting it directly to my Dropbox and having it loaded for my Ableton, and you can also export it to be used in your mobile app. last utility app I would recommend looking into is Audiobus 3. This is a very powerful app that allows you to route audio between your music apps. This allows more sound design possibilities and allows a way more complex and mature workflow, I think, when you're making music on your mobile device. Cool, so those were some of my favorite mobile production apps. There are a lot I'm missing. I know there are a lot out there that I didn't bring up in this video. Please let us know in the comments what are your favorite ones so that we can continue this knowledge in our comment section. If you like the video, please leave a thumbs up, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're releasing videos weekly. As always, I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. Stay positive, stay inspired. I'll see everyone next time. Later, y'all.
Кроптел. Наоборот. Не понимаю, что-нибудь мне это щедро. Да. Румыны всякие. О, ЧС вообще хорошо, кстати, заходит.
I got an email from this company called Unison, and they were like, "Yo, check out."
Эй!
This somewhat janky looking app is the best music production app for Android. Beneath its somewhat intimidating design is a powerful, intuitive DAW for your phone that gives you a lot of control over your sound whilst working within the limitations of such a small screen. And it's capable of some pretty polished music production. This video isn't sponsored by them, I'm not affiliated with the company that makes this app in any way, and for that matter, I don't know if they even really support it all that much these days, but it's still, I think, the best music production app for Android and maybe one of the best music production apps out there, period. As a proud Android user, I know that it's kind of hard for us to find premium apps for more specific stuff sometimes, but I've tried a bunch of music production apps for both iOS and Android, and I can pretty confidently say that I like Caustic the best out of all of them. So in this video, I'm going to start off by quickly describing how it works, what I like about the app, and then I'll give you a bunch of audio examples so you can hear for yourself what it's capable of, and this is all stuff that I've produced over time using Caustic. Alright, so let me quickly talk you through how this app is laid out, and it's deceptively simple. Essentially, this window right here gives you access to all of your instruments. So in this case, I've got a beatbox, which is their drum machine, and a PCM synth, which is a sampler synth. And then you just press one of these to load in a new synth engine. So there's like a saw-based synth, a synth specifically for pads, a modular synth, an organ emulator, something for bass lines, and so on and so forth, an FM synth. And you can choose one of these, and once you've chosen a synth, so I'll just select this one right here, it takes you to the interface. So I've got that laid out here, I've got that sample pitched and mapped to the keyboard. So then if I just scroll down one notch here, this is where I put in my MIDI data. So if I hit play, you can see it just triggered that note, and I can put in more notes. And obviously those are just placed randomly so they don't sound all that good, but hopefully you get the idea. So let's go back to this main window. I've got my effects, and I don't have a ton of effects going here. I've just got distortion on the drums and on the bass, and you can see that you have 2 effects slots for each track. And if I go down further, this takes you to your mixing window. So let's say I solo this. And these correspond to their effects slots, and I can do stuff like adjust the volume, the panning, width, and some very basic EQ. If you want more specific EQ, you can head up into the insert effects. And each instrument has patterns associated with it. So this, say, drum pattern here, that's pattern 1. If I go to pattern 2, it's empty because I didn't put anything into it. Same with the other 15 patterns, only pattern 1 has stuff in it, and then you can expand that even further by having more banks of patterns. So you have a ton of patterns available to you in this. And you can go to grid to make that up to 8 bars long. You can also change how granular you want to get with the notes, which is how I did that hi-hat roll here. If you want to see it more normally, it looks like this, and this is how all the drum notes are laid out. These patterns come into play if you go all the way to the bottom where the sequencer is, and then notes are laid that up to 8 bars long. You can also change how granular you want to get with the notes, which is how I did that hi-hat roll here. If you want to see it more normally, it looks like this, and this is how all the drum notes are laid out. These patterns come into play if you go all the way to the bottom where the sequencer is, and then you can choose where in time different patterns are laid out. So A1 for beatbox is that main drum part. And you can see some of these are longer than others, and all I have to do is just tap a spot, choose the pattern, and it drops it in there. That's it. And I can quickly build up an arrangement doing that. So now let's talk about why I like this app so much. And first of all, why I think it's better than some of the other apps out there. It's better because it is, I think, the most intuitive once you get past its kind of design sensibilities. I think you'll find that the way it's set up is extremely logical, and like I mentioned before, it really is optimized for a tiny screen. And you can quickly get lost in making beats, which is another reason why I like it so much, is that often I'll just pull it out to maybe tweak a small element, or maybe I have just like 5 or 10 minutes of idle time. I'll pull up the app and immediately start producing, and it's easy to get lost in an unexpected production session and get into a flow state because you can use it anywhere and it's inspiring. It's got some proper synths in there, so you can do some very proper sound design on there, and you really unlock its power if you load in your own samples. A lot of the stuff built into Caustic sounds fairly video gamey, which for me is a lot of the stuff built into Caustic sounds fairly video gamey, which for me is a positive thing. I like that kind of music, and I find that being supplied with those sounds and then trying to work with them can be quite inspiring, but you really unlock its capability for polish by loading in your own sounds, both synth one-shots and drum sounds. It's got a proper drum machine and sampler that you can load drum sounds into, and it's got a proper chromatic sampler that you can load synth sounds into, and then sequence in melodically, like I did in the intro track. The intro track is all using custom sounds, and it sounds quite polished because the sounds I brought in are quite polished. And
the app really works with them well. This app is such a good DAW and quite quick to learn, so really the only limits of it are the sounds you load in and your creativity.
Ну да, да, ну да, easy, говорит, easy, я понял, да. Не знаю, разбирайся, счастный, да.
To a degree, your patience when it comes to dealing with such a small screen, because there are some things that can be a little slower and some things that will require a little more patience when working with a small screen, such as arranging a full track or doing really fine tuning for mixing or sound design. But typically, I'll just do a rough arrangement and then export the individual tracks to mix them in my DAW on my computer. Doing that is super easy and really lets you have the best of both worlds. It lets you have the extreme portability of working on your phone or on a tablet, and it lets you cleanly export stereo wave files or whatever you want with the click of one button that you can then easily export and bring into your real DAW for some really fine-tuned mixing and mastering. So this is a deceptively powerful tool and can be used kind of however you want, from being just a quick ideas and little musical sketch machine to being a fully featured music production station. And you can do proper mixing and mastering on it as well. It gives you the effects and mixing and mastering tools that do allow you to get a pretty polished sound directly in there, but for me I find it's a little bit too fiddly to really dial in that aspect of my sound, so I will typically export that so I can really hone that in afterwards. In addition to all that, the app is quite affordable, especially in comparison to buying a physical piece of gear or even a DAW for your computer. And it's even affordable compared to some of the other music production apps out there, and it's cross-platform, so it works on both iOS and Android. So whichever phone you're using, you'll be able to get this app and immediately make it work for you. So all that being said, here are a bunch of audio examples of stuff I've made using the app entirely on my phone. In some cases, I've done a bit of mixing and mastering in post, but all the sounds are stuff that I've made in the app or brought into the app, but most of it's with entirely stock sounds. And that does it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to see a video about how to make full songs in Caustic, you can tap.
I got an email from this company called Unison, and they were like, yo, check out this MIDI cool.
Salut à tous, alors aujourd'hui je vais essayer de vous montrer les solutions qui existent pour s'enregistrer chez soi tout seul. Et bien sûr l'objectif ça va être que ça soit ni trop emmerdant ni trop cher, et on va voir ça tout de suite ensemble, c'est parti. Alors s'il y a bien un truc qui a changé niveau matos ces dernières années, c'est le home studio. Alors quand on parle de home studio, c'est juste le fait de pouvoir s'enregistrer chez soi. Donc en gros, ça nous permet de virer les tables studio classiques qui étaient bien sûr super coûteuses et en plus pas pratiques du tout sur plein de points. Alors je vais vous parler de deux solutions qui sont assez similaires, mais je ne vais pas parler des enregistreurs autonomes parce que par exemple je sais qu'il y a des tables de mixage qui vous permettent d'enregistrer vos répètes ou quoi. Mais perso c'est comme ça que j'enregistrais avec mes tout premiers groupes il y a plus d'une dizaine d'années. Et je trouve que le résultat est toujours assez mauvais et c'est vraiment compliqué d'avoir un bon son avec ce genre de configuration. Donc je ne vais pas parler de cette solution-là parce que je pense vraiment pas que ça sera ça qui vous donnera le meilleur rendu. Mais on va se concentrer sur le côté MAO. Alors je déteste ce terme, ça veut dire musique assistée par ordinateur. Et c'est complètement con parce que toutes les musiques sont assistées par ordinateur maintenant. Essayer de me citer un album qui est paru en 2019 pour lequel il n'y a pas eu d'intervention d'un ordinateur, c'est juste impossible. Donc je vais vous donner deux solutions qui sont vraiment pour moi les plus pratiques, les moins chères et les plus efficaces pour s'enregistrer à la maison. Première solution, vous branchez votre guitare et vos pédales si vous en avez dans votre ampli. Vous réglez le son comme vous voulez, puis vous mettez un micro devant votre ampli. Ce micro, on va le relier à une interface audio et vous inquiétez pas, dans quelques secondes je vais parler des cartes son. Et cette carte son, elle est reliée à des enceintes ou à un casque et à votre ordinateur sur lequel vous avez préalablement installé un logiciel spécialisé dans la création musicale qu'on appelle DAW pour capturer le son et gérer le mixage, l'exportation et tout ce qui va s'en suivre. Deuxième solution qui ressemble beaucoup mais qui va nous permettre de zapper juste une étape, vous branchez votre guitare et vos pédales directement dans votre interface audio et ensuite vous allez pouvoir gérer votre son complètement depuis le logiciel dans votre ordinateur. Alors pourquoi je privilégie la deuxième solution? Tout simplement parce que je pense qu'il faut toujours aller vers la solution la plus simple. Évidemment, plus la chaîne va être longue, plus on va se rajouter de problèmes potentiels. Rien que le fait de rajouter un ampli à un micro, ça va complexifier énormément la prise de son. Et en plus, ça va vous coûter très cher parce qu'évidemment, il faut un très bon ampli pour que ça sonne bien. Et aussi, un très bon micro. Vous vous doutez bien qu'un micro à 20 balles sur Wish, ça va pas valoir un très bon micro de marque. Et en plus de ça, comme je viens de le dire, quand on veut capter le son d'un ampli...
Я тоже, я не понимаю эту систему до конца. Хорошо, допустим, даже. Не понимаю. Ладно, ладно. Шезмо. Да. Ребята. Эй.
Avec un micro, c'est assez complexe parce qu'il y a plein d'éléments qui vont rentrer en jeu. Il va y avoir la distance de la capsule par rapport au haut-parleur, il va y avoir l'angle aussi du micro par rapport au haut-parleur. Et tous ces trucs-là, c'est des choses qui vont se rajouter quand vous allez devoir enregistrer.
Hello tout le monde, bienvenue sur Pile et Face. Et aujourd'hui, on va apprendre à faire des vidéos pro avec un smartphone. C'est parti. Ok. Dans cette vidéo, on va parler de plusieurs aspects pour avoir le meilleur rendu en filmant avec votre téléphone. Cette vidéo va se décliner en 4 axes. Le premier, on va parler de stabilisation. Ensuite, on va parler d'applications et de paramètres pour filmer. Puis, on va parler de mouvement et on va finir par la storytelling. Avant de commencer, j'aimerais partager avec vous une petite vidéo que j'ai tournée ce week-end à Paris entièrement avec mon téléphone. Je vous propose qu'on la regarde ensemble et on parle des axes juste après. Paris, ville d'art et d'histoire. Et c'est cette diversité qui m'a le plus marqué. À Paris, il faut marcher. Non seulement pour tomber face à des monuments historiques magiques, mais surtout pour assister à un art singulier. L'expression. L'art de l'expression est intemporel, mais il est aussi très personnel. Paris est une ville qui regorge d'art sous toutes ses formes. Il n'y a pas
Нет, подожди. Ну да, да. Наверное, нет, ну наоборот. Эх, ладно. Наверное, не то совсем, да. Не то совсем, да.